webinar on understanding the financial aid process for parents and families of high school students. I am going to go ahead and begin my screen share for all of the participants. We have you muted, and you are able to use the Q&A function to submit questions. If you agree with a question that someone else submitted, you can like it, and it'll kind of rise to the top of the Q&A by the end. We are recording this session as well, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel following. So let's go ahead and kick this off, and I will begin the screen share. Okay, we're good there? Okay, thank you again. Today, I am going to co-present with Galen Rose from Lawrence University and LaShawn Springer, who is a high school counselor with Phillips Academy, Andover. So what we want to focus on in this presentation on understanding the financial aid process, this is geared for parents, legal guardians, or those that are helping students with their financial aid applications. This presentation focuses on the process and information we know to be accurate through 2019 and 2020, the cycle we just finished. We're going to present a little bit on what you need to prepare for the 2019 and 2021 application cycle, because there are going to be some updates that will be rolled out. Applying for and receiving financial aid may be impacted by the global pandemic. Keep visiting studentaid.gov for updates on FAFSA from the federal government. And then again, a reminder that the College Horizons faculty and staff are here to help you parents and families through this uncertain time with the financial aid process during and after. So again, we're releasing information to you right now while we're in our remote program, but we're going to provide updates ongoing, especially as we receive financial aid updates from our partners and also from the federal government for the FAFSA form, or from the College Board, who administers the CSS profile, which is another application that might be required by some of the colleges. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to LaShawn, and you're welcome to introduce yourself, and you can go ahead and move through.
Awesome. Thank you, Carmen. As Carmen said, my name is LaShawn Springer. I am a high school college counselor at Phillips Academy, Andover. This is year 8 for me on the high school side, excuse me. And prior to this, I worked on the college side at Wesleyan University. I think in terms of thinking about financial aid, one thing I always want my families to walk away with is the understanding that college is affordable. That's probably one of the biggest fears and anxieties for families, that it's out of their reach because of price tag. And so we want to start out immediately by just saying, breathe, college is affordable. And we're going to walk you through the ways in which that can become, and it will become, a reality for you and your family. So just a quick look at our agenda together. Fundamentals of financial aid. We'll talk about what is financial aid, what types of aid are available. We'll talk a little bit more about the process for applying, which includes looking at the FAFSA and the CSS profile. We'll talk a little bit more about scholarships that are available for you and your families, tribal scholarships, national and state scholarships, as well as merit and need-based aid. And then we will leave plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. Sorry, I think we skipped ahead. There we go, thank you. So in terms of the fundamentals, so what is financial aid? At its most basic level, it is money that helps a student and their parent and guardian pay for higher education. It comes through a variety of means. It can come from the federal government, from the state, from the college and university itself, and then a number of private resources. So that could be tribal scholarships and other external scholarships, could be Sorry, thank you. It's okay. It could be that your local gardening club has a scholarship in your neighborhood that's available, and because you're a wonderful gardener, that's available to you. It could be so many different things. So we'll walk through how to keep an eye out for applying to scholarships. And the funding that you get from financial aid really covers a number of different college expenses. So it covers tuition, room and board. Of course, that's your room. And then also thinking about food, what you'll eat while you're on campus. It may cover your books, can cover your supplies, also covering transportation. If you're not within driving distance of a school, is there money calculated for you to be able to travel via plane or whatever it may be to and from college? And then additional fees. It could be activity fees, it could be insurance, any number of things. But these are all the things that financial aid can cover for you and your family. So these are just a little bit of statistics about some of the trends we've seen in college pricing. Public 2 years, the average have been around 1,100. For public 4-year in-state, it's about 20,000. Public 4-year out-of-state, 36,000, and private 4-year, we're seeing the average is around 46,000 for families. Those numbers, again, they may sound really big and scary to a lot of folks, but we want to stress that each year more than 2.7 billion with a B, in federal student aid actually goes unclaimed. And so you have a higher chance of getting free money for college than finding a 4-leaf clover. I like that little image that's there. It's a good reminder for all of us. You can also start applying for money as early as October 1 of your senior year, sometimes even a little bit before that. Some scholarships actually open up for 11th graders prior to their senior year. It's important to know that students have 85% chance of getting some kind of student financial aid. 92% of applicants from low-income households receive grant money, which again is free money, which you never have to pay back. And of course, there are all sorts of ways to help you understand whether you're eligible for financial aid. And the main document will be the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. So these are, again, types of aid that can be awarded to you and your family. Some of it is based on need. And so really that means that the federal government and colleges are looking at your family income level. So they're looking at your tax return forms, and others are looking, are awarding based on merit. So that can be anything outside of need. If you're a juggler, if you are a dancer, if you participate in any of your native traditions, if you are somebody who's a singer, a musician, if you are active in your community by volunteering, these are all different forms of merit aid. It's important to know that not all schools offer merit aid. So when you're doing your research on different colleges and universities, these are the types of questions you can start asking. Are you a school that awards money based on need? Are you a school that awards money based on merit, or both? And there are plenty of schools that actually do both. Types of financial aid that you can get, generally when you see your package, you might see a combination of all of these things. And so we want you to have the terminology and understand what they mean. Grant aid, again, is free money. This is not money that you need to pay back. And it can come through Pell Grant from the federal government. It can be institutional or an SEOG grant as well. There's also loans, and loans can be given to both students and parents. It's important to know that loans have to be repaid. And of course, there are different stipulations for all different types of loans. We've listed here for probably the most awarded loans that you might find in your package: subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans from the government, federal Perkins loans, and the PLUS loan. It's important that you understand what the conditions are for every single loan if you're going to accept them, and also to know that you have some agency. You can actually see a loan in your package and you can make a decision whether you will accept that loan from an institution or not based on your own family circumstances. So that's important to know as well. Of these loans, they have different stipulations in terms of when you start paying back the money. They have different stipulations around interest rates and how those interest rates are accumulated. It might be a little too granular on our first pass for us to go through every single one. But again, it's important that you're doing your homework for any loan that any school offers you. There's also federal work study aid. And so this is money that students can work to earn during their time. So when you get to campus, you can have a campus job. I worked in admissions when I was a student in college, and was able to earn some money that I spent on books or spent on supplies, going out with friends, things of that sort. And then there's also, again, scholarship aid, which also is, again, free money that you're given. And it can come from the college or different organizations, tribal nations, or state-specific aid. It's also important to know whether there are any conditions for your scholarship. So is your scholarship just for 1 year? Is your scholarship for all 4 years that you're in college? Do you need to maintain a certain GPA in order to keep your scholarship? Do you have to do something to renew your scholarship every single year? So there are some questions that come along with it, but again, great resources to help you pay for college.
Hello, everyone. My name is Galen. I am an Associate Director of Admission at Lawrence University up in Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm just finishing up my 7th year there and excited to keep chatting with you a little bit more about the breakdown of how financial aid will look. So because we've talked about how much aid a family might receive, I think it can be very hard for families to understand the cost sometimes. And so we want to go over some quick terminology and how that information is calculated. So when we are referring to the cost of attendance of an institution, the cost of attendance is made up of kind of 2 different subsets. The mandatory charges, which you might hear referred to as direct costs. That would be tuition, fees, room, and board. So the direct things that we are billed for. And discretionary costs or indirect costs. That'll be books, supplies, personal things such as transportation, shampoo, ordering a pizza on the weekends. Those are things that are not going to show up on your bill, right? We will bill you for tuition, fees, room, and board. But we also want to make sure that you're budgeting for those discretionary or indirect costs. And in total, those items together are the total cost of attendance for a university. Another term we're going to talk a lot about today is expected family contribution, which we simply call an EFC. I really dislike the word EFC because I don't think it is descriptive of what it is. An expected family contribution sounds like it should be the amount a family is expected to contribute to college, but it is not actually the amount of money that you will have to pay for college. So when you complete a FAFSA and it provides you an EFC, this is not just the amount of money you will have to pay for college. Instead, it's what we as a college are going to use in order to calculate how much financial aid you're going to be eligible to receive. And that amount might be different by different institutions. And so it's important to keep that in mind. The way that the FAFSA calculates an expected family contribution is simply a federal formula. I know we'll be sharing this later, and so I've linked it in this presentation, but it is about a 12-page formula as a fair warning. I think all it's really important to keep in mind is that we're going to be considering your family's income, assets, and benefits for both you and for you, the student. And then we'll also take a look at family size and the number of family members who are attending college during the same school year. So that can affect our EFC from year to year. And then we use those 2 numbers we just talked about, the cost of attendance and the expected family contribution, to find out what your financial need is. So, right, we talked about the core of that EFC is that we take the cost of attendance, subtract your EFC, and that'll bring us to the financial need. And the financial need is the number that your college is aiming to fill. There are different institutions will meet a different amount of financial need. So some of the questions that you can start asking, like LaShawn was referencing, are you a full need met institution? Do you meet the full need that I'm going to demonstrate? If not, is there a certain percentage of need that you meet that I can expect? And as a family, you should be prepared to fill that gap if you're looking at institutions that aren't going to meet the need. One of the greatest things about being at College Horizons and part of College Horizons is that most of the partner colleges here are going to meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need for families for all 4 years. It's a little bit of a process, though, to get through financial aid. And we're going to be rather brief today, but I know College Horizons and the colleges and volunteers here supporting are going to be available after this as well. But to start understanding the process, I think we all start with a certain level of sticker shock. I know for my family, when we started looking at the cost of college, it was more than my family had ever made in a year. So that idea of sticker shock of just, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to be able to afford this? I want to acknowledge that that sticker shock is real, but that there is, like we've talked about, billions in aid to help families. And that's not going to be the cost for most families to attend college. There is a process that you'll have to follow, though. It does require students and their families to be really proactive and informed. So we're going to take this time to inform you of a lot of that process, but it starts with completing the FAFSA. Once you complete the FAFSA, you'll receive a student aid report, which will include the expected family contribution. You may be selected for verification. This does not necessarily mean you've done anything wrong. It is a random selection by the government. And if you're selected for verification at one school, you've been selected everywhere. Because it's not school specific, it is going to be the government selecting those FAFSAs. You'll complete any other pending processes. Different schools will require different forms that we'll talk about. And those will go through the college before you receive an award offer from the school. Once you decide on a college and attend that college, you will need to renew the FAFSA every year. So just be prepared for that. And then understanding the process a little more, talking about just the timeline here. So starting this summer, before your student is entering their senior year of high school, we're working with them today in our small groups to really research local scholarships and to understand that they can start getting estimates of what college can cost now. There's a tool called the Net Price Calculator that's required to be on every single college's website. If you have trouble finding it, just go to the search bar and search Net Price Calculator, and it should pull it right up for you to start understanding what that actual cost might look like for your family after financial aid. On October 1st, the FAFSA and the CSS profile will both open, and that is sort of officially kicking off financial aid season. We really encourage families to complete those forms in October or November. Some schools may require that those forms be completed as part of their admissions process, so you'll need to keep an eye on what each college requires there. Through the winter, you'll continue to apply for outside scholarships, gather other information that you might need for each college, and then keep moving forward on your tax process through February and going forward there. Typically, financial aid awards will come out in the winter or spring. So typically in the start of the new year, all the way through April, before May 1st in the college decision deadline. So we want to make sure you have as much time as possible to understand your financial aid award before you're officially making your college decision.
Thanks, Galen. That was helpful. I think, one thing to know, I'm, for my group, actually working with 10th graders who are going into 11th grade for my small group. And so it's important to know that there are things that you can do way before this process even starts. And, this is one of the first pieces. Every family should feel like they can be equipped with the information and the knowledge that they need in order to go through a process like this. So just attending this session is a wonderful start for you and your families. For those who are 9th to 11th grade, again, because the FAFSA and the CSS don't open until October 1, you may be tempted to think like, I can put that off and not think about it right now. But it's important to think for things like scholarships. Many of those sometimes do have GPA and ACT, SAT score requirements. Again, some of the other merit aid pieces we talked about might be because you're really involved with your community and you've demonstrated some of that leadership. And so you're building towards that in grades 9 through 11. So it's important that your student is focusing on their grades and the things that they're involving themselves with both at their school and maybe in their community outside their school in order to increase their eligibility and opportunity for some scholarships. It's also important to know that you should have a copy of your tribal enrollment or CDIB documents, as many Native specific and tribal scholarships will require proof of enrollment for eligibility. And again, juniors can actually start creating their profiles at these different scholarship search engines, all of which College Horizons recommend. So College Greenlight is one. Big Future, you can find that on the College Board website. A lot of students are familiar with that site because it's where you register for SATs. FastWeb and Chegg are also great scholarship search engines. And again, that can start for 11th graders right now. And then for our parents and guardians, as a family, you want to start making sure that you have your income tax filings current and up to date, because you will have to submit that tax information for federal aid eligibility. The FAFSA depends entirely on your tax forms and information. So as soon as it opens, you want to have your tax form sitting with you as you fill out those documents. And again, students, you may think about whether you need an additional email account, or if you don't have one that's a more professional email account, perhaps, you may want to get one because you are going to start receiving lots of information from colleges and universities. For our seniors who are now getting ready to launch fully into this process, a lot of the same things that we said for our 9th through 11th grade also holds true. There's still going to be this focus on your grades, and of course you all are thinking about what makes the most sense with testing at this point in time. But you're running two processes at the same time, and so you want to think about how to be organized. And families, your student, your child better than anyone else. And if this is an area that they'll need some help with, want to think about this as like a real family endeavor to either create a spreadsheet or Google Sheet where you're housing a lot of the deadlines that you'll need, or even better, pen and paper and put it on the fridge, so everyone knows when your application deadline is and also when your financial aid deadline is going to be. As I said, you're going to start getting a lot of emails from colleges and universities and from scholarships for applications. And so you want to make sure that you have an email account that's going to house all of that you actually are checking regularly as well. And, sometimes it's hard to use your school account because they do have certain expiration dates. So if you need to sign up for perhaps a Gmail account that you're going to check regularly, you should do so now. This summer, again, a wonderful opportunity to start the search process. It does for scholarships. It does take time. So I know sometimes for students that feels hard to juggle while you're in class and also filling out applications and also searching for scholarships. So this summer is a wonderful opportunity actually to start doing all of that work. And again, as we mentioned, having available several copies of your tribal enrollment or CDIB documents for scholarship applications that might require them. If you don't have a voicemail set up on your home or your cell phone, now's the time to do that. You will find that colleges and scholarships might reach out to you and again, your parent and guardian via phone or email. For the FAFSA, one thing to know is that your FSA ID, everyone will need to sign up for this student and whoever is acting as parent and guardian. And that is a way that you legally sign those documents because it is electronic for the most part. So you will need an FSA ID. You can create this in senior year of your summer. And it takes about 5 days to process the FSA ID. So this is not a situation where your financial aid application is due on October 1 and you start on October 1 and sign up for an FSAD on October 1 because that will mean you'll miss a deadline. So it's important to know you need to do a couple of things in advance in order to be fully prepared. And then again, completion in October. It's important to know that the FAFSA actually uses prior tax year forms, which is really, really helpful for families. So you're not rushing to submit this current year, but 2 years prior.
Okay, thank you, Galen and LaShawn. So picking up on the two types of forms that generally most colleges ask for when you're applying for financial aid, we're introducing to the students two of them. And one is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and then the other is called the College Scholarship Services, which is the CSS profile that's administered by the College Board. Now, for the FAFSA, this opens up October 1. That's when you can start to begin to fill it out. You have to have that FSA ID. Both a parent and a student have to have one. And then you're using the 2018 taxes. So that's the prior year. And then once you complete that with your 2018 taxes, you will then be allowed to update once you file your 2019 taxes, okay? And it's important to know, you might be saying, but right now I'm being impacted with my income in this 2020 year. Why am I using taxes in 2018? So that is just the requirement by the federal government to use that 2018 taxes initially, and then this coming, when you have your 2019 taxes ready, you can upload those. The change in income is a factor at the college level, and we'll get to that next. So it's really going to be with the colleges that you're applying to and get admitted to that you're then going to be having to start a different process that explains the impact to your income because of the pandemic. Okay, so just know you have to follow the guidelines of the federal government to complete the FAFSA, and then any income changes is dealt with through the colleges. The other application, the CSS profile, also opens up October 1st, and the majority of our College Horizons partner colleges require the CSS profile. So the CSS profile will ask for additional information. So the FAFSA is only using your tax information. The CSS profile is going to ask for additional, usually assets that the family holds. So that's going to be part of the difference with it. Plus, the colleges come up with their own institutional formula when they're calculating the aid that a family is eligible for. Okay, so just be aware, again, you got to ask for the colleges that your child is applying to in terms of financial aid, what type of financial aid application is required by the college. Just the FAFSA, just the CSS profile, or both of them. Okay, so again, getting started on the FAFSA, this is just a slide of where you're going to go. We use two primary resources to help our students and families navigate the FAFSA. The first is the U.S. Department of Education's site, and they do have some COVID updates as well there. And then the other one that we really like that is really geared towards, it's family friendly, is the FAFSA, the Form Your future campaign through the National College Attainment Network. So that's another link that you can get just resources. There's a lot of videos on step-by-step guides for families or for students on completing the steps. The quick overview of the FAFSA, and one important thing to know is that this year the federal government launched a new app, a mobile app called My Student Aid, that both a parent and a student can download and use the app to complete the FAFSA. So there's a mobile capability with it. The other thing to know to make the FAFSA go quicker is to use the IRS data retrieval tool. And this is what links when you submit your federal taxes. You can link that electronically to your FAFSA, and it'll pre-populate the information from your taxes into FAFSA. So we do recommend that you use that IRS data retrieval tool to sync up with your application, and then it populates information. That way you're not going back and forth on which line from my taxes do I input into the FAFSA form. So very quickly, the 8 steps to fill out the FAFSA: create the FSA ID account. Again, you can start to do that this summer or August. Just do it before October. Then you're going to start the FAFSA form. It opens up October 1. Number 3, you fill out the student demographic section. You list the schools to which you want your FAFSA information to be sent. Number 5, you answer the dependency status questions. Number 6, you fill out the parent demographic section. Number 7, you supply your financial information, and that's where, again, you can use the data retrieval tool to import your tax information. And then the last part is signing and submitting your FAFSA form. And signing and submitting is through that FSA ID. It's kind of like your signature. Okay, so FAFSA is one step and one place to find out your eligibility for federal and state aid. Now I want to transition and talk about some very Native specific resources. And so the big 4, as I call them, for Native students come from these scholarship providers. The Cobell Scholarship offers the most versatile scholarships for American Indian, Alaska Native students to attend vocational, tribal college, 2-year, 4-year summer school and graduate school opportunities. The American Indian College Fund offers scholarships for both tribal college students and those attending 4-year institutions. The American Indian Graduate Center offers several undergraduate and graduate scholarships and fellowships for Native students. The American Indian Science and Engineering Society offers the most comprehensive scholarship opportunities in STEM-related fields. Okay, and there's some of these scholarships of what I call the big 4 are typically for American Indian and Alaska Natives, but some of them are open to also Native Hawaiian students and other Pacific Islanders. So you just have to look at the eligibility around that. And then for Hawaiian students, the Hawaii Community Foundation and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs have some of the most comprehensive scholarship opportunities for Native Hawaiians as well as Pacific Islanders. Okay, so the other part when we're thinking about national scholarships, so those were kind of national Native scholarship providers, you also have to look at state-specific scholarships, particularly if your child is going to apply to state institutions, which most of our students, when we build out the list, we're doing regional schools as well. So this is just an example for New Mexico, but again, you have to go to your Department of Higher Education for your state to see what is available. So for example, in New Mexico, we have what's called the Legislative Lottery Scholarship, which will pay a portion of tuition for undergraduate degrees for New Mexico high school students, including those with high school equivalency, to attend an in-state school. They also have another scholarship called the New Mexico Scholars Scholarship, which encourages New Mexico high school graduates to enroll in college full-time at public or private nonprofit post-secondary in New Mexico before their 22nd birthday. So there's the eligibility. And then new this year is the Opportunity Scholarship, which will provide tuition tuition and fee assistance to those enrolled, oops, not in 20-year programs, that's a typo, in 2-year degree programs in New Mexico, higher education institution, including our New Mexico tribal colleges and universities. And then there's a graduate scholarship that's also offered. So don't forget to look at the state-specific scholarships of where your child is applying. And again, you've got to keep track of what those deadlines are and the requirements to apply. The next area to consider are tribal scholarships. And again, I pulled an example for the Navajo Nation Chief Manuelito Scholarship. So many tribes have developed scholarships for their citizens. Students and families should explore what opportunities the tribal nation has available for Navajo students in not just New Mexico and Arizona, but Navajo students from across the country. They can apply for the Chief Manuelito Scholarship, which has 2 requirements. Academically, they look at your GPA, and then they also look at your ACT or SAT and look at both of those. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, because of the impact that the pandemic is having on students taking the ACT or SAT this fall, this is where you're going to have to keep in touch and find out if your tribe is going to also drop the ACT and SAT requirements for this coming year. So I just haven't seen the rollout by a lot of our tribes yet around this, but it's going to have to be likely if a student cannot take the test safely, then our scholarship providers should be following suit to not require that. So that again is another level of investigation, and we'll try to keep you updated as much as we can on what we know. And then for the Navajo Nation, for example, another requirement is completion of Navajo language course and Navajo government course. So you have to be looking into this, and this is something again that juniors can be looking into of what is the requirement, especially if there's an academic one like the Navajo Nation one. Students and families can also explore scholarships and grants available through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The BIE lists a whole grouping of scholarships and eligibility for students that are in BIE schools. And then this next slide that I'm about to go into is that a final note, Native students shouldn't only be looking at scholarships that are Native only. You've got to go beyond that as well. Apply to those, but you need to go and do bigger searches, because just like in the college process, these other external scholarship providers, they might not get very many Native Americans or Native Hawaiian students or Alaska Natives applying to their scholarships. So our students will look interesting because they're not represented in that scholarship pool. So make sure you're expanding your search. Again, the ones we're promoting through College Horizons are College Greenlight, FastWeb, Big Future, and Chegg. And then again, search local also. Where do you bank? Do they offer scholarship? Churches or religious organizations, do they offer scholarships? Civic organizations locally, and then local foundations. So here in the kind of Albuquerque area, we have the Albuquerque Community Foundation, which has a set of designated scholarships for students throughout the state of New Mexico. Okay. These are the last slides, and then we're going to start to get into the Q&A here. So I appreciate you hanging in there with us. I think, is this back to Galen?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So just acknowledging again the uncertainty that we're all in right now with COVID-19. Colleges have certainly not been exempt from that. And if anything, I think are hyper aware of a lot of the uncertainty surrounding even having our students back on campus and what that means for all of our families financially. I really think it's important to emphasize, as your students are thinking about attending college, that it is still affordable. I know that sticker shock is so real, and on top of the hardships many of us are going through right now, that can feel very difficult. But there are over 2,000 four-year colleges, so many more two-year colleges and other schools. There's just an incredible amount of options that are still offering great aid to support our students. The other important thing is that you are likely going to be eligible for more aid than your EFC reflects in the FAFSA. Because we're going to be using prior year, as LaShawn and Carmen referenced, that tax information will be before COVID hit the United States. So the impact that we have felt mostly in 2020 may not be reflected in the FAFSA. And that's where it's going to be really important to contact admissions and financial aid teams to ask them how you can give the best current financial picture for your family. You can do that starting in the fall, starting now even. There are some colleges that are going to be proactively asking for forms in order to give you the best offer that is possible up front with all of the data they can collect. And there are other colleges that are going to wait until after you have your first financial aid offer based on that FAFSA information to have you appeal, is most typically what it's referred to as. And then just a reminder, I thought that financial aid and admissions offices were very, very scary. It's me, I promise I'm super nice. We're incredibly compassionate people, and we really are trying to help your students and your family. So please do reach out to us and understand that there is a person on the other end of that line who is trying to help. Some just quick tips is to plan ahead. We've really been encouraging our scholars to start thinking about their budgets for college. So if they are coming back into your dinner table and asking you to start talking about budgets, I'm sorry, and you're welcome, depending on how you feel about that. We do acknowledge that there's a lot of culture wrapped up in our conversations about money, but we're encouraging our scholars to just start thinking about what is going to be a good financial fit for them and what is a good financial possibility for their future. Completing the FAFSA, we've talked about it so many times, but when it becomes available, please do it. Even if you are only qualifying for some small loans, so subsidized and unsubsidized Stafford loans, should you need emergency funding in the future with anything surrounding COVID, it is only available to those who have completed the FAFSA. So we always encourage all families to complete it no matter what, but it is technically a personal choice, but I would really, really encourage you to think about doing that. Being proactive, contacting people as soon as anything changes. So maybe your financial situation is stable now, but it changes partway through after you've filled out a FAFSA, or you've already decided on a college, you have a financial aid offer, you said yes, and something changes down the road. Please contact us so we can make adjustments to your award as quickly as possible. And this will hold true the entire time that your student is in college. We are a resource for them and for you, and we want to make sure we're doing the best possible, our best possible ways to help you. And then lastly, I always say it can't hurt to ask. We were talking with our students today about the creativity of financial aid. So much of this is just rules and formulas and numbers and data. But there's also some things that we can help with that often students don't think of. Laptops, winter coats, travel grants to get back and forth, emergency funding. If they're having any issue, if there's something that they can't afford that they absolutely need in order to go to college where they've chosen, don't hesitate to ask financial aid or admissions and see what we might be able to do.
Okay, and just the final reminders before we start to go into the Q&A is that College Horizons will, this webinar is being recorded. We will post it for the public on our YouTube channel. We will post resources on our website. You can check out our resource page. We probably won't get it done right this week. This will be following this week's session. And even this PowerPoint, we'll modify it to put links in so that you can just click on it and be able to have it easier to then viewing it on the YouTube channel. So again, we just need time in order to make the resources. I also encourage folks to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for updates. We will share information from partner colleges and other educational organizations who are doing important work with Indigenous students. And then you can also sign up to our College Horizons newsletter on the homepage of our website to learn about upcoming webinars. So we're going to keep using our social media channels to push out information, updating every couple of weeks, so that you're informed and aware. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the Q&A that's coming in. Galen, I'm going to direct this one to you. If a family doesn't qualify for need-based aid, but would like to get merit-based scholarships, is the FAFSA and/or the CSS profile forms required by colleges?
Typically, no. Most colleges, there is merit aid available regardless of that, but there's always exceptions to the rule. That is kind of the one rule of financial aid to live by. So do just be sure to double check with either with the college or with the organization if it's an outside scholarship, if they require any forms.
And one thing too, I want to tell parents as well is that and this goes to the next one of the next questions about whether or not to do the FAFSA or not. A lot of parents also do not think that they will qualify for financial aid. We have some institutions, if your AGI is up to 125,000, you might still qualify for financial aid. So parents, this is the hard part about the subjectivity of saying, am I upper class, am I middle class, am I lower middle class, am I poor? All of these words that we use can make us miss out on realizing that actually, you might be a family who's getting by, you don't have a lot, but you think you're not super poor enough to qualify. So all of the language that we use is really inaccurate. So we are encouraging all families should complete the FAFSA this year because of the impact COVID is having. And just as Galen had said, if there's an emergency that comes up, you want to have all the forms done so that you can move into the asking for that aid that you're eligible for. So we would highly, highly recommend that every parent, regardless of what you think your income is, to complete the FAFSA for this coming year. Okay, let's see. If you have more than, next question, if you have more than one student in college at a time, does it benefit me financially if they attend the same school or not, or does it not matter? Galen.
Typically, no, that does not matter, because the way that your expected family contribution works is that's the expectation for the whole family. So if there's two in college at the same time, think about splitting that in half. However, it'll depend a little bit on the institutions the students are looking at, because different institutions will meet different levels of need. So potentially if they're both looking at going to institutions that meet demonstrated need, it should not affect that. There are some schools that do have sibling scholarships and things like that as well, though.
Okay. Next question, does the FAFSA take debt into account, or do they just look at assets and income? And I'm going to add on to this one too, do the colleges also take debt into account, or are they just looking at asset and income? Galen.
You're really testing my financial aid knowledge now. I'm going to ask you guys to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty confident. The FAFSA does not take that into account. And there's like weird caveats if you're using assets in order to fund your debt. However, we do have some special circumstances at different colleges that may be taking debt into account, but it would be institution specific.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just reading here. Oh, that one is done. Okay, sorry. If I have two kids who will be in college, do I complete two FAFSA CSS, or is there a way to do just one?
LaShawn, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they both need their own, but there is an ability to copy over your information now, which is so handy compared to a few years ago when you had to type it separately.
That's correct. Okay, thank you. Okay, is it possible to negotiate aid if you have packages from different schools? So this would be, once we've gone through the process this fall for seniors and we're kind of in springtime now where we're looking at our aid packages. Galen, what are your thoughts? And then LaShawn, if you have thoughts on this as you advise students and parents.
Yes, this goes into the category of it never hurts to ask. I don't know any college that will publish this information on their website or openly advertise it. But if you do have other competing packages, do reach out. I always encourage students to try to look at type of institution, right? It's hard to compare the cost of a local 2-year school to a 4-year residential Ivy League college. You're going to have a different experience at those places. Not that either are better or worse, simply that it's offering a different product, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can try and keep them similar in terms of asking the financial aid office to take a look at this. I would also encourage that you don't need other packages to ask colleges to reconsider your financial aid award or to ask questions about what your award means. So if something is unaffordable to your family, you have every right to call the admissions or financial aid office and say, I don't know how I'm going to fund this. Is there anything else we can do? How can we work this out, or how can I help? LaShawn, do you have anything to add there?
I echo all of that. And you actually added on at the end what I was going to say, and that sometimes it's possible that families do a net price calculator and they're thinking their package might be one thing, but then they get it in real time and it's not necessarily affecting what they thought it would be. So absolutely should still pick up the phone and call and advocate for yourself and your family.
Okay, great. To the next question, does FAFSA require factor in a step parent's financial info as well? And my understanding of this is we will also do another FAFSA session that's very specific to the steps, because also we didn't have a slide up here that I moved out, but one important thing I want to say about Native families, sometimes our structures of our families do not look like the Eurocentric family structure. And so we might have intergenerational homes. You might have an aunt and uncle taking a significant role in raising a family member. And this also turns into a question of who is the parent or guardian that should be completing this application. Also, if we have parents who are divorced, separated, or a parent who has not been in the picture regularly, or a parent who's incarcerated, there's a lot of other things that we have to help our students with. And we do at College Horizons have different types of families. So there's going to be a couple of steps on the FAFSA page that makes you answer a question. If this, then this. And so my understanding is, yes, if that step parent, if you are married and they're in the same household, that step parent's financial information is also included with that child. Anything else to add, Galen or LaShawn?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, because there were a couple of questions about what you just said. So FAFSA is generally filled out by the custodial parent. And again, we should talk more about, you can talk with Carmen and other folks at College Horizons about who that would be in your family. The CSS profile, however, does require both custodial and non-custodial parent information. But again, that can be waived given there are different circumstances in people's families. So it's important for that family structure conversation to happen prior to doing your paperwork.
Okay, next question on the, I already have a FAFSA and FSA account with child 1. Do I have to do a separate account for child 2? I think the answer is no. I think it's once that child creates their FSA ID, I think it gets linked. I don't know, LaShawn, if you have anything else, or Galen on that one.
Yes, you use the same FSA ID for each child.
Okay, question on, do you include your retirement 401k information as an asset? So again, depending upon which application you're using, the FAFSA or the CSS profile, they're going to ask for different things. The CSS profile is for sure, I think, going to be asking for that asset. I know on the federal methodology with the FAFSA, it's supposed to be that you're not looking at a parent's retirement savings or the mortgage to as a part of their calculation. So it's not like we're asking parents to dip into their retirement or to do something crazy with their mortgage to help pay for college. They're looking at it differently, that you still have to live and, you know, have a home to live in. But the CSS profile, and sometimes even the institution, the college, might ask for additional information of those assets. Galen, I'll let you also add to this too.
That was exactly correct. Yeah, the 401ks should not be included on the FAFSA, but typically is on the CSS profile.
Okay, let me go to FAFSA. Are they looking at our net income or gross income? It's going to be, you have to, because you're using your taxes, it's going to be the AGI that is going in there. So it'll be your adjusted gross income. Anything else? Okay, with, let me just, I just want to scroll through a couple of others. Okay, if with divorced parents sharing equal custody, do both parents submit a FAFSA? If only one, does the higher income parent the one required to apply? This one we're going to have to probably direct you to the FAFSA page. What I want to say is that it is still going to be, it's almost like the 51% rule of who the custodial parent is, who more of the time does that child live with. So that person still becomes that custodial parent. So it's almost like you need to determine the 51% of where does the child just that little percent more live with. But I'd have to direct you to the FAFSA website and the information, the questions that they ask you, and they're pretty clear to say, if this, then this, if this, then this. Okay. And again, same thing, next question, if parents are divorced or both remarried, the FAFSA consider all 4 incomes or only the biological parent? Should the parent file jointly or not? Again, FAFSA and CSS profile will be a little bit different. So just be careful. The reason why we keep bringing up CSS profile is because if your child applies to a school that requires the CSS profile, you have to disclose more information. So just be prepared for that. Again, on the FAFSA with different type of blended households, again, I think it's going to be the custodial parent. If they're remarried, then it's those 2 parents that do submit. But if it's on the CSS profile, it's going to be both of the biological parents that are going to have to submit. Anything else, Galen and LaShawn? Okay. Let's see, next one. I know, Galen, you work with athletes as well, so I'll pose this one to you. Are there rules about what additional kinds of scholarships a student can get if they're getting a scholarship for athletics to an NCAA school?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it depends on the division of the school as well. So, Division 1 schools, the ones that we are often rooting for on TV and have really strong allegiances to, Rock Chalk, we are typically seeing full scholarships. And so that is taking care of the full cost of attendance. At Division 2 schools, they're more often going to be partial scholarships. So they might still, and they can stack. So they might have an athletic scholarship and still be eligible for a merit or extracurricular scholarship, as well as the other forms of aid. And then at Division 3 schools, where we cannot give out any athletic aid, they're still eligible for all other aid. So they may not be getting a scholarship for their sport, but they're still eligible for other ones.
Okay.
And
Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was
LaShawn.
just going to add, not necessarily about athletics, but with scholarships, outside scholarships in general. Another good question actually to ask each school is the way in which an outside scholarship might affect your financial aid package from the institution. So it could be sometimes if you have an outside scholarship for $5,000, a school might take that money off of the loan that they gave you. Other times they actually take it off of the grant, the free money that they're giving you. So you want to have some sort of understanding of how that's calculated for each institution.
Okay, thank you. And then if a parent is deceased and the other parent may not be in the picture, and the student is living with extended family, how do they navigate? We definitely work with students with all sorts of circumstances. We even had to help students who have become legally emancipated at the time that they're going through their college application and financial aid process. Or some of our students are also children in the foster care system. And so they have a little bit different process as well. And this one on, again, the FAFSA site, there's a great guide for families of what to do and who to contact for this. If this student is a part of our program at College Horizons, we can also help with this because we've also written some letters to explain the situation. Typically, those actually go to the college, though, where we're able to say, this is the family circumstance. We can verify that this is that this student is navigating this pretty much on their own. But the FAFSA will tell you if a parent is deceased, who do you go to next, and then with extended family. And there's also some legal things in here too that FAFSA and the federal government also wants a certain legal status of a person working with the child to fill it out versus any extended family member. So I know I didn't give you very specific, but again, if this is a student of College Horizons, we can reach out to us, and Amelia is my key FAFSA person that we work with, and we can really help in that particular situation of what it is. But there has to be an adult tied to the student unless we take them to this other category of an emancipated minor at the time of the application. I don't know if Galen or LaShawn, if you have any other kind of insights on that. Yeah, if a person is divorced with 100% legal physical custody of the child, yes, your financial information will be required for FAFSA. However, again, on the CSS profile, they will ask for the other the information of the other biological parent. There have been circumstances, though, if there could be some extenuating circumstances where you can fill out a form that says we cannot get in touch with this person for certain reasons. So there is that ability, but you will be asked to provide a reason why you can't get that other parent's information, particularly again for the CSS profile. Galen, is there anything else, or LaShawn, on that question? Okay. For our cost of living expenses considered, I'm not exactly sure what your question means, but I'm going to interpret it one way. So there's something really important too. If your family, we all make choices about our lifestyles and what we spend on, whether or not we live in one house or multiple houses, whether or not our children go to independent schools. We all are in control of our own family finances, and this can be a hard thing sometimes, where you have some pretty major expenses, and then on top of it you're adding to it now a child who is in college. So there could be extenuating circumstances, maybe by some family who are saying, like, we've had to move a grandparent out of a nursing home into our house for extra care, and this is additional expenses that we didn't have at a certain time. But there's a difference with quality of life choices, or what has happened with debt, that isn't translated through the FAFSA. It doesn't know it. It doesn't really care about it. It's just going to work through your taxes and give a number. On the CSS profile, also, there might not be a lot of wiggle room for your quality of life. And I don't know if there's anything else, Galen or LaShawn, to add to that, because there still is an expectation that parents will contribute to pay to the cost of their child in college.
Sure. I think a question that we get asked very often about cost of living just has to do with physically where you're living. So for example, in the state of California, it costs significantly more to buy a house than in Wisconsin. And the FAFSA does not take cost of living into account. I would say most schools that require the CSS profile, it will be taking cost of living into account. And we already have those calculations that we're doing our best for individual cities and areas. LaShawn, do you have anything to add on that?
Okay, well, that was great. We just are a little bit over the hour. Our faculty have to get into their small groups sessions right now. We were able to get through pretty much the whole queue. So again, thank you, families, for sitting in on this session. Again, we will post updates. This webinar is as of June 28th with information that we have right now. And again, we'll update resources. The slides will turn into a type of PDF document with links so that you can navigate it a bit quicker. But again, we just need some time in order to get to that. So again, thank you all for your attention, and thank you to great co-panelists for making this happen. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.